meet Shanaz. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. As Antos mentioned, my name is Shanaz Nell. I am the CEO of a company called Professional Evaluation, and more recently, I've become the CEO of a group called MediaHost. So it's important to note that what we do is outside of the scope of music only. Our focus is media. We've been in the industry of understanding how to record, capture, monitor, and track different formats of media, well, for us specifically in the television and radio industry. So why is that important to you? It's because we have no added value. There's nothing to us when it comes to music other than the intention of monitoring music and music usage for the purpose of royalties in the industry. So we don't gain from it other than being able to provide the services to a host of people. So as I mentioned, the Media House Group is, our background is in advertising specifically. And I know that specifically for music, music usage in advertising is a huge thing. And within the broadcasting industry, it's a requirement, if anything, for all ads or advertisers, creative agencies, production houses, all of them to track the music that they use while advertising. This, however, and it is actually mandated, it's a compulsory service that every single creative agency and production house is supposed to ensure that they present the cue sheet for music when it comes to advertising and production music as a whole. However, in advertising, it's not the norm. And so we not only track production music, but we also track commercial music for that purpose. And then we have the ability to not only ensure that the cue sheets and the information, the metadata that is provided in adverts is present, but we also have the ability to monitor it through our products called Adlytics. Finally, in Adlytics, we joined professional evaluation and research joined from the perspective of editorial monitoring. So what editorial monitoring is, the back end of every conversation in the media, every news item that you see, opinion piece, social media blog, etc., we monitor that. And for an artist, an influencer, knowing what their brand value is something that we can offer you. So we started out because in the African market, advertising is worth 5.1 billion US dollars. And something that everybody wants to do is get into the African market because there's so much value, so much creative power inside of the continent. So we've been focused in 20 countries, but specifically, we have a real added value to offer people when it comes to the South African media industry. So this is just an example of what we focus on. So here we speak about television, radio, digital, and print. We also have, we are the sole licensee of a product called AdStream, and that is for every ad that you see, we own, like 85% of every ad that you see on television, we are responsible for distributing it to broadcasters. So, the fun part, that is the business part of what we do. But the purpose or the reason why we got involved in the music industry specifically is because there's this sense that music comes for free. That every artist that invests their time, invests their energy, their creative flow is something that can be given to somebody for free. What we've realized is that we can offer the artist, the composer, the record label, the agency, everybody that it forms part of the value chain, something more. We can give them comfort in knowing where they were. What are they doing? Who is speaking about them? How much needle time there is around the music that is played. So this is something that we wanted to participate because we are independent. We want to be able to give something back using technology, innovation, data, in order to give power back to musicians. So in South Africa is the biggest market in Africa when it comes to music. Over 1.2 billion rand was collected in 2021 by CMOs for the intention of giving back to artists. Through the royalty programs, there's 5 CMOs at the moment, and through that, the biggest revenue sources over the past few years has been music rights revenue, performance revenue, which we spoke about earlier on, which is the live events, service revenue, brand-related revenue. That is actually the merchandising that was discussed earlier, and just generally grants and funding revenue from the government. So what do we do? So over the past 2 years specifically, Media Host has monitored over 3 billion seconds of music on behalf of the industry. We've been tracking 285 stations, and in essence, it's 100 years of continuous music that we've monitored. Who are the people that we are speaking to? We're speaking to the artists, we're speaking to the performers, artist managers, authors, music writers, composers. Who are our allies in this? We've been speaking to music publishers, digital distributors, labels, music labels, etc. And what is the purpose of this? We've been taking a step to better understand the music industry as a whole. I think one of the things that we've learned in the past couple of years is that artists are artists. Like the team mentioned earlier, not often are people really interested. The artists, the musicians, aren't interested in the administration of music. They're not interested in understanding the sync agreement. They're not necessarily interested in registering their music. But if you work with people that are tech savvy, who understand what you need to do in order for you to gain a passive income from the music that you create, is that we can offer or we can support any group of people to do that. But it means that you have to have a basic understanding of the importance of the composition. What you contribute to the creative world has value. And so therefore, we want to be part of that relationship. Hi. Sure. Well, okay, sure. Yes, so I think in terms of the audience, the size of the audience that we're speaking to is a much broader one. We're not only looking at individual relationships with artists, but I think an industrial level, we want to speak about how can we improve the tracking and monitoring of music for everyone. So as I mentioned earlier, these are the 5 biggest CMOs in South Africa at the moment. This is SAMRO, Capasso, SAMPRA, IMPRA, and RISA. In the previous slide, it gives you an indication of what type of monitoring we do. We monitor everything. We monitor every single thing that happens in the media. And so when we speak about these 5 individual organizations, what we can present back to you will speak to exactly the needs of that group of people. SAMRO being the biggest one, and I'm sure everybody who has been an artist, works in publishing, understands the publishing space, understands the collection space, and is a registered member at some point or the other, has had a bit of a contention with either one of these agencies. I think one of the points that was raised earlier for me was it's interesting to see that people look at every other revenue stream other than the royalty revenue streams as a means to make money. For me, the fact that royalties is a starting point for anybody that has created a song, and it is not even discussed as a revenue stream, is astounding. So this is how come we've taken the approach that we monitor all music 100% of the time. What we offer is outside of the scope of what, because we monitor not only the registered stations, but we monitor the unregistered stations as well. We know where music is being played all of the time. So we have different methods of measuring and different formats. So in this instance, we're speaking about simple music. How do you, a song is played, what do we need in order for that song to be tracked, and why we need the information in order to assist. So we upload a track through the support or through a relationship similar to the one that we have with CCA, where we receive all of the music, and through that we are able to receive the music, fingerprint the music, and as that music is detected, we are able to match it based on the metadata, and we are able to supply a complete report back to the agency individual composer. Similarly, we have advertising. In this format, we usually work with creative agencies, production houses. They submit an ad to us. They submit the advertising data as well as the music data that we receive. And then we fingerprint that music, we fingerprint the ad, and every time that ad is played, whether on radio or television, we are able to match it, and we are able to provide a report. Also, we have an editorial process. So this is more specifically for the influencer. So this is somebody that is speaking on a digital platform, somebody that has been on the radio, in the news, and has just as a bit of a profile outside of just the music. We are able to track that person's profile and create a profile for that individual as well. So this is more of the analytics, I think, that everybody's interested in. This is an example of the type of music. So we see here we have the duration of a label or a publisher, the amount of seconds per publisher, or how the music was actually registered. So if you will see that 3 different examples of Universal in that. So based on the metadata that is provided by the publisher or the record label, we will be able to track based on the metadata that is available. And then we'll also have song play duration by artist and label. So you will see those are the top 10 at the moment of music that was played during a period. The majority of that, as you will notice, is also not South African. And then we are able to provide you with the key stats as to what radio station it was played on, and for the duration it was played on those stations. So these are seconds. And that is something that I don't think many people can offer, is that we not only provide the metadata of music, we provide the actual needle time. So from second 1 until the completion of it, using not the usage rights or the usage rights of provided by the broadcasters, we actually track, monitor, and detect directly from the broadcasters. So we can compare anything that we do to what the broadcast log provides, and we can confirm where the music was played. So here we have an example. This is CCA's information, but here we show you that it was detected on 195 stations, and this also shows the amount of times a CCA composer or a registered composer was tracked or detected. And then we have 2 different values present over here. We have a payout value, which is, at this point, it's linked to a CMO's rate per second of time, of the value of that per second. And then we have a rate-based value. So earlier when I spoke about the editorial coverage, this is the value of being in the media at any given time as an artist, as a musician, based on advertising spend per broadcaster. Similarly, we have another one showing, and this is a specific artist. It's a Cape-based artist called Youngsters CPT. And you can see the value per second, and you also have, you can see the rand value of this person in the media as well. So the level of detail that we offer goes from publisher to label to artist to splits. However the music was registered, that is the type of information that can be provided back to you. So this is an example of another composer in advertising. This individual has been commissioned, so there is a sync agreement in place. But additionally, with Capasso, for instance, you would register your mechanical rights. Here, in addition to the mechanical rights, this is per second that this person was aired using through advertising. So the commission work, in addition to being paid towards the commission, the sync agreement, this person actually earns per second that the ad is advertised. And then finally, we have also an example of, this is the type of editorial coverage where you placed inside of the media who has more of a brand value attached to their name, how often are they in the media, and for what kind of publicity. So you will see there's day-to-day administrative information that is provided about SAMRO. There's a story about theft of royalties in SA's music history, but there's a variety of stories that we capture. And in addition to being able to give you the editorial perspective of you as a brand, we also offer you a complete 180 scope of you as an artist, a composer inside of the media. It also tells you where you've been positioned and how often. So I think I've gone through the presentation part, but fundamentally, I don't think that this room really wants to look at presentations, but have complete conversations. Ask questions about what can we do, how do we do it, and why we think that we can offer something different in the music landscape that hasn't been provided before. I think there's been a lot of urgency around the tracking and monitoring of music, and more people want this. More and more people want to take ownership of their output in the music industry. And unfortunately, given the landscape as it is right now, that hasn't been happening. So we want to come to the table, not as experts in the conversation, but rather as service providers, partners, people who want to understand how do we do this for all artists in South Africa, and how do we ensure that they get their fair comeuppance, rather than speaking about boring presentations. Let's have a conversation about it.
Okay, so thank you. Just as a disclaimer, CCA does not have the rights to those composers. We just used a sample of the content as we've been working on this project. So now the floor is open. We knew this was going to be a long one. So Martin, I don't know if you want to start with your, how does it differ, question. Thank you for being patient and waiting till the end of the presentation. I'll get you next.
But the quick question is, I'm an artist, I'm John Smith or whatever. I've got a discrepancy with SAMRO. SAMRO will accept radio monitors reading of the situation where I had 1,000 air spins on KFM and SAMRO says nothing has been spun on there. Will they allow your data to be used? And what are the costs involved? Because I've got 4 songs out and I want you to monitor them for me. If you could give us a breakdown, I think that would be really helpful. Thank you.
So yes, so one of the things that we monitor against is not necessarily, I'll also allow Ashal, who is the data analyst in this, to give you a little bit of an update on how it's done. But fundamentally, we don't monitor just on the name of a song, but we monitor the registered music. So we ensure that we are monitoring based on the ISWC and the ISRC codes first and foremost. So those are the things that not only us, but SAMRO themselves should have. So if we submit a report, we will be able to submit the report based on actual seconds, actual where it was detected, and then we'll be able to provide you with an actual audio clip to assist with that. So that is how come it becomes nearly impossible using data analytics and technology to dispute and because we can verify the information that we share. So our goal is not to get into an argument with SAMRO, it's to provide and verify facts. That is the purpose of our work that we do, and we also work very closely with SAMRO for many years to understand how they use it. Yeah. 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 So that is exactly what we do. So like I mentioned, we monitor everything, we detect everything. So we will physically be able to give you a report with every single detection, 1,000 detections, and those detections can be verified against the actual recording.
Yeah. So to add to that, I think the answer to the question is we don't only we will prefer to work with publishers, because otherwise the amount of information that we get from the industry would be overwhelming. So we would actually try to assist the artist by going to a publisher and working through a publisher to get that information. Ultimately, I think that is the responsibility of, if the person is associated with a publisher, is for them to help them in that. Yeah.
Can I answer the question for you? The reality is that we would register, let me give you an example. CCA represents 2,000 artists that are not published by us, right? But what we do is we've asked to track. We've asked to track so that the fundamentally the most important reason why we're doing this is for artists to see where their music is being played. Most importantly, outside any of SAMRO claims or everything, the service that we are providing is many artists don't have the opportunity to know where their music and their music videos are being played. It's a service that we are providing. The reality is that if you have a dispute with SAMRO, that's not our dispute. What we can do is provide you the data. And if you ask at what cost, that comes at it's a different discussion, because it depends on how many songs. And as Charles has actually indicated, working through publishers, working through record labels, working through distributors to provide a service. That service will be provided to the artist and the composer, and thereafter, if there is a conflict, that is going to be up to them to have that dispute with SAMRO. What you will get is the scientific data. There is no cost, one specific cost. You know what I mean? That's like asking how is a dispute between splits. What is it going to cost us with legal fees?
So, and also just to clarify your earlier question about Radio Monitor, Radio Monitor provides a very similar service. I think what we're speaking about is the depth and breadth of what we provide. So I'm not exactly certain I don't sit in the offices, what they provide, how many stations they provide, but we, like I mentioned, we do 350 stations in South Africa, radio and television, whether registered or unregistered. That is dependent on the data. So we don't provide, we can, and I'll be honest, if a local artist comes to me, an individual comes to me and they say, I have this song and I want you to monitor this song. This one song could be on 350 stations every single day for 24 hours, every hour on the hour. What that looks like is then that determines how the pricing will work. Similarly, that's an individual. On a publisher level, the numbers are huge. They are significantly higher, and it depends on how popular or what the trends are happening, how common it is to hear certain artists in the media. You can get the pricing, but like Charles mentioned, it's very hard to walk around and look at an individual at one at a time. Our intention is to help the industry come together and work together to figure out a model that makes sense for everyone. We mentioned sync agreements, and we also mentioned splits. Every single time a song is played, and there's a sync agreement, and there's a split, we just give the information and ensure that the publishers have all of the information all of the time.
So sorry, I think that you also marked looking for individual rates. Those we don't have those individual rates. I think that that's something we could just
Yeah.
discuss separately. And once we move on to, to you, sir, you've been very patient.
No, it's been quite interesting. Hi, I'm David from Channel O. I think it's more of a comment. Your product is very necessary. Every quarter, we pay out a lot of money to Capasso, Samro, but we still get a lot of people calling us directly, disputing they didn't get payout, and we're obviously not involved in that because we got a blanket license as MultiChoice,
Yeah.
because we do a lot of syncing music videos, as you may know. So I think my question is, it's the first I hear of this, and I'm also from a radio background. What we send, for instance, is from either Music Master or RCS product called G Selector, any of those payout systems. We take that, we put it with the publishing, hoping that people obviously submitted the correct publishing details. Otherwise, it's obviously going to be a problem for you. How could you service a business like MultiChoice? I think that's the question really that I have. And how could we assist you to put this to market really? Because I don't think, unless you're in the industry as a musician, you'd probably know about it, or publisher, but there are industries like mine where it's a very necessary product, I think.
So we actually do work with our national broadcasters, specifically on the radio deliveries. And so we do exactly that for them. So on our end, we detect and monitor music independently. On their end, they have a requirement to submit their usage reports and their broadcast logs to the different CMOs so that they can then pay out according to that. And similarly, on a daily basis, they have artists walking in and asking them directly for that information. So inside of this, I think the role of broadcasters is to actually become more fundamentally involved in the usage part of this and the actual royalty payout part. Because there's an accountability requirement from broadcasters, but equally, broadcasters need to find comfort in understanding when the money is being paid out, who is it being paid out to, and does it match up to what they've actually sent to those CMOs. That's a long-term regulation conversation that can happen, but fundamentally, we want to work with broadcasters so that we can give them what was detected versus what was assumed to be played out. Right? And we don't doubt that broadcasters are submitting their documentation, but they don't have all of the information that they might require, like the ISWCs. They don't know every composer that was on the back of a song. So we are the compilers, the consolidators, and the holders of that information so that it can be openly and transparently shared with everyone. Hi, Ryan.
Thank you. So
I hope that answered
I'm
it.
hoping that you'll all
And-
connect afterwards,
Yeah.
'cause I'm sure there's lots of questions. But Ryan,
Thanks, Santos. Thank you, Shanaz. I'm just trying to picture where you are in, I guess, the product development journey. So do you have an end goal, which is perhaps in my mind a B2B online platform which has 3 tiers, whether you're a creator or a music publishing or a label, or at the moment are you at the stage where you're just speaking to individuals who approach you and kind of doing a bespoke reporting package based on the fee?
So we have 3 tiers, and I don't think Martin is right there. So we have 3 tiers of packages that we offer. So we can do, and you've seen similar products, like we can do bespoke reports where we're looking at a specific issue at a specific time, where we could do the statistical analysis around a specific area of work, or we can have a project for a publisher. I'd like to see my top 10 artists, similar to an MTV Hot 100, right? We can do those type of stuff. And then we have, on a monthly basis, we can assist publishers, distributors, and teams to actually monitor and track the usage of the artist. So if you submit the data to us, you submit your catalog to us, we then we work with publishers to understand the metadata, to identify the gaps in your metadata, and then also be able to give you a complete usage report that you can either go back to the CMO with directly on a month-to-month basis. And then we also offer our clients the ability to back search. And a back search is basically, we all know that in the CMO cycle, there's about 3 years of music that can be monitored and then reclaimed. And so we can help clients with that 3-year tracking of music. So dating back at least 3 years, and we're able to give them a complete usage report for those 3 years that they can submit to CMOs. And that one is more of a percentage based, because like I mentioned to Martin, you can be on one station 3 times, or you can be on every 350 stations 24/7. And we will then be able to work out that percentage based on the report. Yes. Catherine.
Question. Hello. So I want to know about sync, right? So obviously the recording is a little bit changed. I want to know, is it more difficult for you to track these sync royalties because the recording has changed, or can your technology still pick up that song with like voice dubbing and all of that?
So yes, I mean, like obviously when it changes, and if the metadata hasn't been updated to include the new ISRC information, it can be slightly more difficult because it will go, or it will identify the most recent.
So I actually just want to know, like, obviously as a sync agent, it would be beneficial to you if we kind of give you that final advertising
Yes.
recording.
Yes. So the technology is amazing, but technology still needs human input, right? Even in AI, artificial intelligence is based on me feeding you information and your ability to consume that information, interpret it, and then use it in future. So that is exactly how we build the software, is through the relationship with our clients. They submit the information, and it is not a common practice, and it's not very comfortable to speak about it, but the management of metadata by publishers, distributors, independent artists, it's really poorly cataloged. So that is how come we don't submit to, we can listen to everything and give you an answer. We need to work with you to make sure that your information is correct. Yes, so
You don't need it.
yeah. So I'm just going
I think what's most important, I mean, from our perspective, coming from overall being a record label, a digital distributor, is, and the one thing that we've learned, and we see it all the time, is metadata. Metadata, there is so much metadata missing. And you know, if we go back to what Eddie said in the, I don't know if you were here when he did the first speaker, when he said there 100,000 tracks going up to the DSPs a day. Now, I mean, the company like CCA, I think 60% of our resources spend fixing metadata, ISWCs, ISRCs, because artists don't necessarily, and composers don't necessarily, it's very admin intensive. So, I mean, that is why we, through Gallo and through CC, have cleaned up our metadata, and we're still cleaning it up. And if you think someone like Gallo still has 200,000 tracks to digitize with no previous metadata, it's imperative that we have the right metadata, and that is the system that goes through, and this is how they track. I'm sorry, I just had to jump in there.
That's absolutely fine.
I'm
I'm just
handing
going to use
over
this
to
as an
one-
example of how different metadata can look, right? This is one artist, and so you will see that there's a song played by the label and publisher. And so here you will see everybody that could possibly be on a split, not necessarily representing youngster CPT, but every artist that might have been on that song is represented by a different publisher, right? So it will be represented in the data that way. So the intention is that if you can look at your data, touch your data, see your data, consume it on a monthly, daily basis, you're going to start to identify the trends and the changes in the data before it becomes stale. If anything changes, you should be able to go back and make those changes to the sync agreements, take it out, re-register the track, and make sure that how you collect on that is changed as soon as possible. I think fundamentally there's been this assumption that somebody in the CMO land with the fairies is going to change the data for you, and it's going to be up to date, and that they're going to pay you out according to what you think is the right information. We've realized that this is a constantly changing landscape, and with digital streaming and with digital distribution, that's changing even faster. So, and we've left the analog behind. We forgot about this part of it. And when you change anything in the digital landscape, it changes everything today. Yes, Ryan. So at this moment in time, I think Gabby in the last session mentioned that it's a pretty well-established environment, the DSB environment. And so it's oversaturated. And I don't think at this point in time we're going to offer any additional value to that. I think there's, like I presented, 40% of royalty management and collection is still in television and radio, and that's not being collected. So we add value where we see the need is most, and at the moment it's in that space. So, I mean, let's refocusing here, because there's a market. Our artists, as South Africans, you know, when you speak about neighboring rights, yes, we can always support in collection in neighboring rights, but fundamentally, there are a lot of artists, there's a lot of composers that are not getting what is owed to them here in South Africa. And we have a very well-established and experienced market and industry leaders that I think there is a need and an urge across the industry to get this right. So we want to work with people at the moment just to get our own market right, and then we can expand into the African market. Yes. Hi, gentleman over there.
Hi, I'm Craig from Mama Dance Music Library, and our main requirements are that the music, our music always gets used under sound effects and voiceovers. It's the background music to television shows, and I'm just wondering whether the technologies that you're using for that matching process, which is different to the fingerprinting
Yes.
of ads, or but probably similar to the commercial music, but the commercial music being played on the radio and music video shows doesn't have any voiceovers and sound effects on it. How well is that matching performing? What kind of matches are you managing to get? Because that's critical for us. And actually, I think on TV, I would guess that more than half the music used is underneath voiceovers and sound effects on the TV programs. I'm just wondering how your technologies are comparing to BMAT or TuneSat, and what's your vision for that going forwards?
Yep, I think there's a couple of things. I'll leave that answer to Charles because I'm not the techie in the room. But fundamentally, I think anybody that works in the production sector understands how difficult it is to match match music to sounds above it. So we've identified new technology, and we've actually partnered with individuals to look at alternatives, or companies like BMAT to look at how to improve the scanning of that type of music. The reality is that it is much more expensive, and so you still need to invest in the manual process of ensuring what you submit, the recording itself, that we have that recording, that we have the cue sheets, which is still a mundane and boring thing when it comes to larger scale productions. With advertising, we've become savvy enough to be able to support the automatic generation of cue sheets because of the duration of ads versus longer format programming. But fundamentally, it is still a challenge when it comes to production music because we need much more of the input at the beginning. And so I'm going to hand it over to Charles so that he can answer more of that.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. It's actually, if there's a single industry that needs a lot of work to be done, it is on the production side of music for royalties. From our experience, we've seen that basically there's about 2 or 3% cue sheets being submitted for ads. It's very low, and we also understand how ad is created. People are under pressure, they want to get it out, and the last thing they think about is a cue sheet. Now, from the technology side is that there is new technologies and there's opposing technologies that we like to use, not only BMAT, there's other technologies as well. So that actually tracks, it's a fingerprint, but it is a much more detailed fingerprint. So it can go down to the label level, remove a voiceover, and then find the music in that. The idea is that we help people, the broadcasters, to show completeness of information when it comes to ads. If we know about all of the ads that's been aired on a specific station, do they have a cue sheet for every single ad? If there's no music used, then we still need a cue sheet to say that no music was used. Everybody can contest. It's like we don't know what music is used unlawfully in Africa or wherever that means. And that means that there's people that is not being paid for music they are using. So that's also our approach is monitor all stations, not only the licensed stations, because it's important for publishers and any publishers to understand where the music are used. It means that they understand that how popular the music is they have, and that's why we give you that information. So the technology does exist, it needs work, but it needs a complete overall of how the industry is approaching this problem. Does that answer your question?
To a degree, I think if we were to subscribe to MediaHost for monitoring and move over from BMAT, we would just need to be assured that the matching results are really good for production music, and we just need to know that up front. Like where are you at with it? Because I think we've all been through the process of this over the past couple of years, where lots of promises were made of what rates of matching could be done, but they couldn't get there. So
yeah, I think the approach for us from a business perspective, not from a technology perspective, we have to be honest and open about what is possible.
Yeah.
But if you're using BMAT, it's the same technology that we would be using in any event. Okay. So from our perspective, it's not about, because the ad would not be monitored continuously. We will actually put metadata to the ad, and then as it gets tracked through whatever station, we will pick up that thing. So we already have the music information from it before it actually is aired. So once the first flight that goes out, we can track that ad going forward.
Yeah, I understand that, and I agree with you. That would, we are losing millions, I'm sure, from ads. I get that, and you guys are really good with the ads. You've been doing it for years. but the monitoring of music underneath TV shows, if you are offering that as a product, we would just need to be assured that you can deliver the results. I know that we can't take the data straight to SAMRO and Capasso. They will cause it, they will duck and dive, you know, but nonetheless, it still is very helpful for us. And I would like to, you know, at some point, it doesn't have to be now, you know, the details of how you are able to monitor production music, whether it is effective, can it match up to BMAT's standards, and then I suppose the price would be, well, what's the price comparison? So yeah, just something, and we can have a meeting at a later stage
Yeah.
about it.
So I just also want to make a note about some of the conversations that have been happening around this. For us, initially when we walked into, you know, as non-music industry partners, I think that there was many assumptions made about how some of this information was being captured, right? And the assumption was that it was being captured and that all of this information existed and that it was readily available. So what we've realized, and we took on a much deeper role in trying to work directly with producers and creators in understanding and collecting the information from source. And I think that is a commitment that should actually be spearheaded by the music industry itself. It is, in order for everybody to be able to use this system of tracking and monitoring, whether it is us or another partner, is that there needs to be reliability in the information. And the formatting of this information, there is no standard. If you go from one house to another house, how they track and record the information can be vastly different. And we learned this through exercises of collecting metadata in an Excel sheet versus an Adobe file, right? So that in itself creates an additional complication in how that can be absorbed, ingested. So there's so many conversations that we can have about this because we've learned and we now know how to approach the conversation from an open perspective. We're now going to say that the system is perfect to date, but we need to work with clients to understand what their needs are. We can't give, at this moment we can offer you a very bespoke service because we want to cater to the needs of our clients. Ryan, you look like you have a question.
Speak after.
Okay. Any other? Yeah. Okay, so then that means that actually.
Yeah, I think if there's anything specific, maybe they can meet you and Charles at the Music Arena stand or something, if you guys have something specific or tailor-made. Otherwise, just a comment for the artists and composers in the room that generally you would rely on a record label or a publisher for an ISWC or an ISRC code. But you can get one from RISA, you pay a small fee, you'll get a prefix that will last you, in perpetuity for a small fee. And SAMRO is offering ISWC codes as well, or through your publisher.
Yeah.
Honestly, on that, it's like obviously you'll submit to SAMRO, but they will take how long they take to register music. So it's important to understand our technology also looks for duplications in monitoring. So if somebody comes and say this is their music and it doesn't belong to them, we will actually track that and say this has already been registered. I'm not sure if SAMRO does do that. I don't think they do. And also, if you send us the information, it will be tracked from day one. So that process might take a couple of months with SAMRO to register. We will be tracking it from day one.
Yeah, I'm referring specifically to getting a new code or registering a code. Obviously, they're unique standard recording codes, so you can't use somebody else's. You can't just duplicate one. So yeah, just to be clear.
Awesome.
Great.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone.